All right, let's jump right into it. Today, we are unpacking a seriously compelling, honestly pretty dense piece of philosophy called The Sovereignty of Discernment in a Distorted Reality. If you've ever looked around lately and felt this profound sense of cognitive dissonance, just that weird feeling about the state of the world, well, this explainer is going to break down exactly why that's happening. We're going to look at the author's core arguments about how society normalizes things, how the very definition of truth is shifting, and ultimately, how we can navigate all this chaos with a clear head.
So the source material actually hits us right out of the gate with this incredibly stark, powerful thesis. We need to stop converting wrong things into correct. It's bold, right? The author isn't just saying society is fumbling around making innocent mistakes. No, they are pointing to a highly intentional, active process of conversion. It implies that the established baseline of what is fundamentally incorrect is being engineered to look correct. And that single sentence really anchors everything we're about to explore. It frames our reality not just as confused, but as actively distorted.
Which brings us to Section 1, our distorted reality. Let's look at the macro problem.
The text identifies this first major paradox, which is the active societal push to present things that are inherently unhealthy as, well, completely healthy. And the source explicitly links this to why modern times feels so increasingly dangerous and strange to us. Imagine walking through a world where all the warning labels have just been secretly swapped out. When a society starts validating unhealthy things as beneficial, it creates this foundational instability. You're literally forced to doubt your own common sense, which, as you can imagine, is a deeply disorienting experience.
And this distortion actually goes a step further into our next duality, where we're seeing the dangerous normalization of harmful elements being repackaged as completely harmless. The author is taking us way deeper into the rabbit hole here. I mean, it's one thing to call a bad habit a healthy choice, but it's another thing entirely to take something actively harmful, something that causes real-world damage, and rebrand it as totally safe. It's kind of like putting a festive bow on a rusted bear trap. By looking at these concepts side by side, we can really see the massive cognitive leap modern systems are asking us to make. A leap that, according to the text, is absolutely fueling societal fear and deepening our collective anxiety.
Continuing with this pattern, the source points out the striking dissonance of treating the abnormal as standard, everyday normality. When the abnormal becomes the standard, the entire compass of a society is just completely thrown off its axis. And the text suggests this isn't just some natural, organic evolution of culture, it's a systematic blurring of the lines. It's meant to make us constantly second-guess our baseline understanding of what a functioning reality even looks like.
So through all these systemic conversions, blatant false narratives are gradually transformed into acceptable truths that we are just expected to digest without question. This is the ultimate culmination of the macro problem. When unhealthy becomes healthy, harmful becomes harmless, and abnormal becomes normal, the inevitable result is that outright falsehoods get cemented as acceptable truths. We aren't just dealing with differing opinions anymore. We're dealing with fabricated realities presented by systems as absolute fact. This makes our ability to discern what is actually real incredibly difficult, basically creating an environment where the truth is entirely manufactured. Because of these shifting realities, people are consequently forced to accept and live with three super heavy burdens in their daily lives: hypocrisy, contradictions, and oxymorons. Notice the specific word forced here. That's drawn directly from the source material. This isn't a passive thing where you can just look the other way. The text argues that the systems around us exert this relentless, invisible pressure, demanding that everyday people carry the weight of these logical fallacies. You are effectively expected to just smile, nod, and play along while navigating a world built on completely broken, conflicting principles.
Let's briefly unpack one of these burdens, oxymorons. Living with oxymorons means our modern systems frequently ask us to believe in two entirely opposing concepts at the exact same time. Think about what an oxymoron does in language, like deafening silence or jumbo shrimp. In conversation, it's clever, maybe a little playful, but the text isn't talking about clever poetry. It's talking about heavy systemic realities. We are being asked to accept societal narratives that fundamentally contradict themselves right at their core. Enduring this kind of relentless 24/7 cognitive dissonance, that is exactly what makes the modern landscape feel so intensely exhausting to navigate.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, the subjectivity of normal. Let's look at the nuance. The text emphasizes that these accepted truths we've been talking about, they aren't absolute. Instead, normalization is a completely subjective experience for every single individual. What is wildly abnormal to one person might be just another Tuesday to someone else. The source material is reminding us that normal isn't some universal law of physics. It's a moving target. It's highly malleable. And because it's so subjective, it becomes incredibly vulnerable to being manipulated by the very systems and conversions we were just talking about. In fact, the text breaks down the exact environmental variables, like your country, your cultural background, and local law and order, that dictate your specific version of reality. A geographic border, a deeply ingrained cultural tradition, or a specific set of laws can completely rewrite the rules of what is considered normal or an acceptable truth. This maps out exactly why two people can look at the exact same situation and see two entirely different realities. The systems they exist within have simply normalized different things. They aren't necessarily right or wrong, they are just deeply programmed by the interlocking variables of their specific environment.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 3, cultivating true self-awareness. This is the micro-solution.
The author actually provides a really clear roadmap to navigate all this distortion. It's an actionable, 3-step method to reclaim your personal sovereignty and discernment. So let's walk through it. Step 1. Develop self-awareness. You have to first pause and consciously recognize the contradictions and oxymorons you are actively being fed. Step 2. Evaluate what works for us. Since normal is subjective based on your country and culture, you must actively filter external inputs through your own personal reality. You gotta ask yourself, does this align with my actual lived experience? And finally, step 3, take decisions in our best interests. This is the moment where you reclaim your agency. You stop blindly accepting false narratives, and you start making choices grounded in your own independently discerned truth, completely free from that systemic pressure to convert right into wrong. So, as we wrap this up, the crucial question you have to ask yourself about your own personal agency amid a distorted reality is this. If the systems around us are constantly trying to normalize the harmful and present absolute falsehoods as the truth, we have to critically examine the choices we make every single day. Are you deciding based on your own cultivated self-awareness, or are you just blindly accepting an oxymoron you've been forced to carry? Seriously, in a world full of engineered contradictions, are your decisions truly in your best interest?